Part 5, The Final Battle. The shuttle raced through space toward the Council Station. Behind them, sensors showed Minsu's entire fleet changing course. 300 warships all heading in the same direction, toward the peace conference, toward thousands of innocent delegates from dozens of species. They'll be there in 2 hours, Soman reported from the scanner station. The station's defense fleet is only 12 ships. They won't stand a chance. Jiho was already at the communications panel sending urgent messages. I'm contacting every human ship in range, telling them what we found, ordering them to the station immediately. Will they listen? Hana asked. Some will. The ones who want peace. The ones tired of fighting. But even if every ship responds, we'll be outnumbered 10-1. Hana took a deep breath. She had one card left to play. She opened a transmission on the Royal Emergency Channel, the frequency that reached every Velthari ship and station simultaneously. This is Princess Hana of the Imperial family. I am broadcasting evidence of treason by High Admiral Minsu. She uploaded the files to the transmission. 7 years ago, Minsu destroyed Kepler-7 research station to start this war. He murdered 800 civilians, both Velthari and human. He has been profiting from this conflict while our soldiers die. I am ordering all loyal Velthari forces to stand down immediately and arrest any officers involved in this conspiracy. She ended the transmission and waited. Would anyone listen? Or would they think this was human propaganda, her word against the legendary admirals? Some of Minsu's ships are breaking formation, Soman announced, watching her screens. Not many. Maybe 30. But they're pulling back. 30 out of 300. It wasn't enough. But it was something. They reached the council station 40 minutes before Minsu's fleet would arrive. The station was in chaos. Everyone had seen Hana's broadcast. Some people were evacuating in panic. Others were preparing to fight. The remaining delegates had gathered in the main council chamber, trying to decide what to do. Jiho immediately took command of the defense fleet. Hana watched him work, issuing orders with calm precision. He positioned ships in defensive formations, set up overlapping fields of fire, identified weak points in the station's structure and reinforced them. Every decision was perfect, every strategy sound, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. We need more ships, one of the human commanders said on the communication channel. Even with everything you've done, we can't hold against that many. Then we buy time, Jiho responded. Every minute we hold is another minute for more ships to arrive, for the truth to spread, for people to realize what's really happening here. Hana left the command center and went to the main council chamber. Hundreds of delegates were there, representing the diversity of galactic civilization. They were afraid. Many wanted to flee, but some were determined to stay. If we run, one delegate said, Minsu wins. The war continues. More people die. I say we stand and fight. With what? Another demanded. We're diplomats, not soldiers. Hana stepped forward. Every eye turned to her. She was still wearing her blood-stained robes from the infiltration mission. She probably looked terrible. But she stood tall. You're right. You're diplomats. But you represent something more important than any weapon. You represent hope. The hope that different species can work together, can solve problems through talking instead of fighting. Minsu wants to destroy that hope. If we run, if we abandon this station, we're saying that fear is stronger than hope, that violence wins. I refuse to accept that. She looked around the chamber at all the different faces. Some nodded. Others still looked uncertain. 7 years ago, my friend Jiho and I worked together on Kepler-7. We believed that friendship could transcend species. That cooperation was stronger than conflict. Then Minsu destroyed that dream, killed hundreds of people, started a war based on lies. I lost my friend for 7 years. He spent that time hating my people, fighting us, killing us. Both of us suffered because of those lies. She paused, emotions threatening to overwhelm her, but we found our way back. We discovered the truth together, humans and Velthari working as partners again, just like we did before. If we can overcome 7 years of war and hatred, then there's hope for everyone. That's what this station represents. That's what Minsu fears, not our weapons, our unity. The chamber was completely silent. Then slowly delegates began standing. First one, then another, then dozens. Species who had been enemies stood side by side, agreeing that they would stay. They would face this together. The first warning came 30 minutes later. Minsu's fleet had arrived at the edge of weapons range. They weren't communicating, weren't offering surrender. just advancing steadily, weapons charged and ready to fire. Hana returned to the command center where Jiho was coordinating the defense. He looked exhausted but determined. When he saw her, something softened in his expression. The delegates voted to stay, she told him. They're with us. Then we better not let them down. He turned back to his screens. Minsu will hit us with everything at once. Overwhelming force, no mercy. That's his style. Can we win? Jiho was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It was sad but genuine, the first real smile she had seen from him in 7 years. With any other defense commander? No, but humans have a saying. We're very good at winning battles we're not supposed to win. It's kind of our specialty. The fleet opened fire, space exploded with weapons fire. Energy beams and missiles filled the void between the fleets. The station's shields flickered under the assault. The 12 defending ships fought desperately, their captains following Jiho's directions with perfect coordination. Jiho's tactical genius was on full display. He anticipated every move Minsu's forces made, positioned ships to create crossfire zones, used the station's gravity well to sling defenders into flanking positions. Every human advantage in creativity and adaptability was leveraged to the maximum. But the numbers were overwhelming. Ships were dying. The station's shields were failing. They couldn't hold much longer. Then Samin shouted from her station, "New contacts! Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace." On the screens, dozens of new vessels appeared. Human ships, Velthari ships, even some alien species responding to the crisis. They had seen the evidence. They knew the truth, and they were coming to help. "All ships, this is Commander Park," Jiho broadcasted. "Welcome to the fight. Follow my targeting coordinates. Let's show these traitors what loyalty really means." The battle intensified. Now the odds were more even. Minsu's fleet was still larger, but they were fighting defenders who believed in their cause, who were united across species lines. The conspirators started making mistakes, hesitating, breaking formation. Then something unexpected happened. One of Minsu's own ships turned and fired on the flagship. "This is Captain Yuna of the destroyer Hope's Light," a Velthari voice announced. "High Admiral Minsu is a traitor and a murderer. I will not follow his orders any longer. All loyal Velthari, join me!" More ships turned. Not all of them, but enough to tip the balance. The fleet that had come to destroy the station was now fighting itself. Order collapsed into chaos. On the flagship, Minsu realized he was losing. In a desperate move, he launched his personal assault shuttle toward the station. His plan was clear. If he couldn't destroy everyone from orbit, he would board the station and kill the key leaders personally. Starting with Hana and Jiho, he's heading for the main docking bay, Soman warned. Heavy shields and weapons on that shuttle. He'll get through. Then we'll be waiting for him, Jiho said. He looked at Hana. This ends now, one way or another. They met Minsu in the station's central plaza. The massive Velthari admiral stood with a dozen loyal guards. He was armed with personal weapons, his scarred face twisted with rage. "You've ruined everything," he roared at Hana. 7 years of planning. Billions in profits, all destroyed by a naive princess and a human with delusions of heroism. "You destroyed yourself," Hana replied. "The moment you murdered innocents to start your war." Minsu laughed bitterly. "Innocents? There are no innocents. Only winners and losers, the strong and the weak. I am strong. I built an empire from this war. And you think you can stop me?" "Yes," Jiho said simply, stepping forward. The guards opened fire. The fight was immediate and brutal. Jiho moved with incredible speed, using his smaller size and human agility to avoid attacks. He had grabbed weapons from the station's armory. Basic equipment compared to military grade, but in his hands they were devastatingly effective. The guards fell one by one. Salman provided support fire. Other station security joined in. But Minsu himself was a nightmare opponent. Decades of combat experience, Velthari physical advantages, advanced personal armor and weapons. Jiho fought him directly, and it was clear he was outmatched physically. Minsu was stronger, faster, had longer reach. He landed blows that sent Jiho flying, drew blood, nearly killed him twice, but Jiho kept getting up, kept fighting. Used the environment, improvising weapons from broken equipment, turned Minsu's strength against him. This wasn't about physical power. It was about determination, intelligence, the human refusal to give up even when winning seemed impossible. I watched my friends die because of you, Jiho shouted, landing a hit that cracked Minsu's armor. I spent 7 years hating the wrong people. You stole those years from me. The shuttle approached the Imperial flagship slowly, running silent through space. Inside, Hana checked her equipment one more time. Her hands were steady, but her hearts were racing again. Beside her, Jiho was reviewing the mission plan on a small screen. His face was calm and focused, like always before a battle. 5 minutes, the pilot announced quietly. Their team was small, just 6 people. Hana, Jiho, Dayun, and Soman would go inside. 2 others would stay with the shuttle, ready to extract them quickly when the mission was done. If the mission succeeded, if they survived, Hana had used her royal codes to get them this far. As far as the flagship's security knew, she was making an official inspection visit. They would let her dock and come aboard. Once inside, she and Jiho would head to Admiral Minsu's private quarters to access his files, while Daeon and Soman created a diversion. It was a terrible plan with a dozen ways to fail, but it was all they had. The shuttle docked smoothly. Hana adjusted her royal robes and put on her most commanding expression. When the airlock opened, a Velthari officer was waiting to greet her. Princess Hana, this is unexpected. We received your clearance codes, but no advance notice of your visit. The matter is urgent and confidential, Hana said coldly, using her royal voice. I require immediate access to the Admiral's quarters. These are my security escorts. She gestured at the others. The officer looked uncertain. Bringing humans aboard the flagship was highly irregular, but refusing a direct order from a princess could end a career. After a moment's hesitation, he saluted. Of course, Your Highness, this way. They walked through the massive ship's corridors. Hana had been on flagships before, but never one actively commanding a war fleet. Everything was clean and efficient. Crew members snapped to attention as she passed. Weapons systems hummed with ready power. This was the beating heart of the Velthari military. And somewhere inside, they hoped to find proof that it was all corrupted. The officer led them to the Admiral's section. I'll need to announce your presence to the Admiral, Your Highness. That won't be necessary. I will announce myself. You're dismissed. The officer hesitated again, but ultimately saluted and left. As soon as he was gone, Soman pulled out a small device and attached it to the door panel. This will scramble their sensors for about 20 minutes, she whispered. After that, they'll know something's wrong. Then we better work fast, Jiho said. Hana used her codes to open the door. They slipped inside quickly. The Admiral's quarters were large and decorated with military honors. Weapons from 100 battles hung on the walls. The main computer terminal sat in the center, waiting. Daeun Soman, watch the door, Hana ordered. Let us know if anyone approaches. She and Jiho moved to the terminal. Hana entered her royal override codes, praying they would work. The system hesitated for a moment, then accepted her access. They were in. Look for anything about Kepler-7, Jiho said, his fingers moving quickly across the controls. Communications from 7 years ago. They searched through files frantically. There was so much data, military reports, strategic plans, supply requisitions. Then Hana found a folder marked Special Operations Archive. It was encrypted, but her codes opened it. Inside were files that made her blood run cold. Communication logs between High Admiral Minsu and several human military officers, discussions about needing a catalyst for war, plans for a false flag operation, target selection. Kepler-7 was mentioned specifically. A research station, civilian population, mixed human and Velthari crew. Perfect for generating outrage on both sides. I'm going to be sick, Hana whispered. Jiho was reading over her shoulder. His face had gone completely pale. Keep looking. We need everything. They found more. Financial records showing massive payments to Minsu and his co-conspirators. Weapons contracts worth billions. Emergency military powers that gave them control over vast resources. Video files showing Minsu meeting with human officers in secret locations. Then they found the worst file. Actual footage from the attack on Kepler-7. Hana's hands shook as she opened it. The video showed the research station from an external view. Peaceful, beautiful. Then Velthari warships appeared. Not many, just 3. They positioned themselves around the station. A voice came through the audio. Minsu's voice. Begin the operation. Make it look like a weapons test gone wrong. Ensure maximum casualties. The ships opened fire. The station's shields collapsed immediately. They hadn't been expecting an attack. Why would they? There was no war yet. The weapons tore through the habitat sections methodically. People were dying down there. Scientists, teachers, friends. And Minsu was ordering it all, his voice calm and professional. Jiho made a sound like he was choking. Hana reached out and took his hand without thinking. They watched the entire horrible video together. When it ended, they just stood there in silence. "I'm sorry," Hana finally whispered. "I'm so sorry. My people did this. My military, my—" "Not your people," Jiho interrupted, his voice rough. "These monsters, they don't represent you or most Velthari, just like the humans who worked with them don't represent us." "We need to copy everything," Hana said, trying to focus. "All the evidence. We'll broadcast it to everyone. Both governments, the media, the entire galaxy will know the truth." They were downloading files when Dayun called out urgently. "Someone's coming. Multiple soldiers." Hana and Jiho grabbed the data and ran for the door. But they were too late. The entrance exploded inward, and armed Velthari soldiers poured in. At the center stood High Admiral Minsu himself. He was enormous even for a Velthari, covered in scars from decades of combat. His eyes were cold and calculating as he looked at them. "Princess Hana," he said, his voice deep and mocking. "How disappointing. And Commander Park, the famous human tactician. I've studied your battles. Very impressive. What a waste that you'll die here." "The evidence is already transmitted," Hana lied, trying to buy time. "Everyone knows what you did." Minsu laughed. "No, it isn't. My security systems would have alerted me. You were caught before you could send anything. How fortunate." He gestured at his guards. "I allowed you to break in. I wanted to catch you in the act of espionage. Now I can eliminate both of you and call it justified. The soft princess who wanted peace. The dangerous human commander. Both dead trying to steal military secrets. Perfect." "You murdered 800 people," Jiho shouted. "You destroyed Kepler-7 just to start a war." "I created an opportunity," Minsu corrected calmly. "A chance for the Empire to expand, to grow rich and powerful. War is profitable, Commander. Surely you understand that. Humans understand profit very well." "Not all of us," Jiho said coldly. Minsu smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Kill them. All of them." The guards raised their weapons. Hana grabbed Jiho's hand, preparing for the end. But then Dayun moved with incredible speed, throwing a small device into the center of the room. It exploded with blinding light and deafening sound. "Run!" Dayun shouted. They ran. Chaos erupted behind them as more guards arrived. Weapons fire filled the corridor. Soman was sending electronic countermeasures, scrambling the ship's systems. Alarms blared. Blast doors began closing randomly. "This way!" Jiho shouted, taking the lead. He seemed to know exactly where to go, turning left and right through the maze of corridors. Hana realized he must have studied the ship's layout. Of course he had. He prepared for everything. They reached a junction when a blast hit the wall beside them. Dayun cried out and fell. Blood was spreading across her uniform. Hana screamed and tried to go back, but Jiho grabbed her. "Keep moving. I'll get her." He ran back under fire and pulled Dayun to her feet, supporting her weight. They stumbled forward together. More guards appeared ahead. Soman fired at them, buying seconds. They reached a maintenance shaft that Jiho had identified as an escape route. "Go! Climb down!" Jiho ordered. They climbed desperately. Above them, guards were shooting into the shaft. Bolts of energy sizzled past them. Below, they could see the hangar where their shuttle waited. So close. Just a few more meters. Daeun's grip suddenly loosened. She was falling. Hana grabbed for her but missed. Jiho caught her, but barely. They lowered her the rest of the way together, but by the time they reached the bottom, Hana knew it was too late. Daeun's eyes were unfocused. Blood covered her chest. She had taken hits meant for others, always protecting. That was who she was. Hana, Daeun whispered, finish this. Peace. For everyone. Then she was gone. Hana wanted to scream, wanted to stay and mourn. But guards were coming. Jiho pulled her toward the shuttle, tears streaming down her own face. Somin provided covering fire. They reached the ship and practically threw themselves inside. Go! Go now! Jiho shouted at the pilot. The shuttle launched, taking fire as it pulled away from the flagship. Hana held Daeun's body, sobbing. The friend who had been with her since childhood. Dead because of this conspiracy, because of these lies. We still have the evidence, Somin said quietly, holding up a data chip. I copied everything before we ran. We can still expose them. Jiho moved to the communications panel. Do it now. Broadcast everything on all channels. Every news network. Every government. Every ship in the sector. Send it all before they can stop us. Somin's fingers flew across the controls. Within minutes, the truth was spreading across space at light speed. The explosions had stopped, but the danger wasn't over. Hana crouched behind a damaged wall with Daeun and a dozen other survivors from various species. They could hear fighting in the corridors beyond. Weapons fire, shouting, screams. We need to get to the evacuation pods, a human diplomat said, his voice shaking with fear. The main corridor is blocked, someone else replied. We're trapped here. Hana looked around at the frightened faces. These were diplomats and advisors, not soldiers. If the attackers found them, they would all die. She was about to suggest they try a different route when the door suddenly exploded inward. Everyone screamed and scrambled back. Through the smoke, armed figures entered. Hana's heart sank when she saw they were wearing Velthari military armor. Her own people were attacking the station. But then someone else stepped through the door. Jiho, followed by several human soldiers. They immediately opened fire on the Velthari attackers. The fight was brief and brutal. When it ended, 3 attackers lay dead or wounded and the survivors were safe. Jiho looked at the group, making quick assessments. Anyone seriously injured? A few people raised hands. Jiho started giving orders to his soldiers, organizing a proper evacuation. His movements were efficient and calm, like he had done this 1,000 times before. When his eyes met Hana's, something passed between them. Not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of it. Stay close to my unit, he told the survivors. We're getting everyone to the safe zone. They moved through the damaged station carefully. Jiho led them, checking each corridor before allowing the group to advance. Twice they encountered more attackers, and both times Jiho's tactical skills saved them. He seemed to know exactly where the enemy would be, and how they would attack. At one point, they had to cross a large open chamber. Jiho was scanning for threats when Hana noticed something. A Velthari soldier hiding in the shadows above, weapon aimed directly at Jiho's back. Look out! Hana shouted and threw herself forward. The weapon fired. The blast that should have killed Jiho hit Hana instead, throwing her backward. Pain exploded through her side. She heard Jiho shout something, heard more weapons fire. Then everything got fuzzy. When her vision cleared, she was lying on the ground. Jiho was kneeling beside her, his hands pressed against her wounded side. His face showed something she hadn't seen since Kepler-7. Concern, fear, humanity. Why did you do that? He demanded. You could have been killed. So could you, Hana managed to say, trying to smile despite the pain. Old habits. I always covered for you in the lab, remember? Something in his expression cracked. For just a moment, she saw the old Jiho looking back at her, the friend she had lost. Then he was back to being the commander, efficient and focused. Daeun, she needs medical attention now. Daeun was there immediately, applying emergency treatment. The pain started to fade as medical gel took effect. Jiho stood up, but he kept glancing back at Hana as they continued moving. They finally reached a secure area where other survivors had gathered. Medical teams were treating the injured. Security forces were setting up defenses, and in one corner under guard sat 3 captured attackers. One of them was still conscious, a Velthari soldier named Taeyang. Jiho and several other officers were interrogating him when Hana approached, leaning on Daeun for support. "Who sent you?" Jiho was asking. His voice was hard and cold again. "Why attack a peace conference?" Taeyang laughed bitterly. "Peace? You think they want peace? The war is too profitable to end." "Explain," demanded a Velthari security officer. "High Admiral Minsu sent us. Not to kill everyone. Just enough delegates to make negotiations fail. Keep the war going." Hana felt like she had been hit again. Admiral Minsu was one of the most respected military leaders in the Empire.
A hero. Why would he want the war to continue?
"You're lying," the Velthari officer said. "Am I? Check the weapons contracts. Check who's getting rich from this war. High-ranking officers, defense contractors, politicians on both sides." Taeyang spat blood onto the floor. This war was never about Kepler-7. That was just the excuse they needed. Hana's minds were racing. "What do you mean the excuse they needed?" Taeyang looked at her, recognizing her royal status. "You really don't know, do you, Princess? Kepler-7 wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a human attack. High Admiral Minsu ordered it destroyed, made it look like a weapons test, knew the humans would blame us and demand justice, knew it would start a war." The room went completely silent. Everyone was staring at Taeyang in shock and horror. Hana felt sick. Jiho's face had gone pale. "You're saying a Velthari military officer murdered his own people?" Jiho's voice shook. "To start a war? Not just ours. There were Velthari on that station too. Scientists, civilians. Minsu didn't care. All he cared about was creating the perfect reason for war. And it worked. For 5 years he's been making a fortune from weapons sales and emergency military powers." Hana thought she might throw up. The humans who died. The Velthari. "My friend Jiho. They all suffered because of a lie." "Not just Minsu," Taeyang continued. "He has partners. Human military officers who also wanted war. They've been working together from the beginning. The war makes them rich and powerful. Why would they want it to end?" Jiho turned away, his hands clenched into fists. Hana could see him shaking with rage. Everything he had believed for 7 years was falling apart. The righteousness of his cause. The clarity of his purpose. All built on lies. "We need proof," Daeun said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. This man could be lying to save himself. "We need real evidence before we can accuse a high admiral of treason." "The proof exists," Taeyang said. "Minsu keeps files on everything. Communication logs, payment records, video evidence, all secured in the Imperial flagship's classified database. He's paranoid about his partners betraying him, so he documents everything." "The flagship is 3 days away," the Velthari security officer said. "We'd need the royal codes to access those files. And even then, Minsu would know we were looking." Everyone turned to look at Hana. As a princess, she had codes that could access almost anything in the Empire, but using them to investigate a high admiral would be dangerous. If Taeyang was lying, she would be committing treason against one of their greatest heroes. If he was telling the truth, Minsu would try to stop her. "We have to know," Hana said quietly. "We have to know the truth no matter the cost." Jiho was watching her carefully. "This is insane. It's suicide. The Imperial flagship is the most heavily defended ship in your fleet." "I know, but I have to try. Too many people have died already. If there's even a chance that this war was built on lies, we have to expose it." "You'll need help," Jiho said. "Someone who knows Velthari military tactics. Someone who can plan an infiltration." Hana understood what he was offering. Despite everything between them, despite 7 years of war and pain, he was willing to help her find the truth. "Why would you help me?" she asked. Jiho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Because I remember something you told me once on Kepler-7. You said that truth matters more than pride, that we should always seek to understand even when it's painful. I thought I knew the truth about what happened there. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe we both were." A human intelligence officer named Somin stepped forward. "I'll help too. I've had my own doubts about how this war started. Something never felt right about the official story." Others volunteered, both humans and Velthari who were tired of fighting and wanted answers. Within an hour, they had a plan. It was dangerous and probably wouldn't work, but it was better than nothing. Before they left, Hana pulled Jiho aside. "Thank you," she said, "for saving us today, for believing me, for being willing to search for the truth. Don't thank me yet. We might all die doing this." But his expression was softer than before. "I spent 7 years hating your people, hating you, even though I tried not to think about you. Now I don't know what to feel." "I mourned you," Hana admitted. "When I heard about Kepler-7, I thought you were dead. I thought I had lost my best friend. For years I carried that grief, and I carried rage, used it to fuel every battle, every victory. What do I do if that rage was based on lies? We find out the truth first. Then we decide what to do with it." Jiho nodded slowly. "All right, let's go break into the most secure ship in the Velthari fleet and steal evidence of the biggest conspiracy in galactic history. What could possibly go wrong?" Despite everything, Hana smiled. That sarcasm was pure Jiho, the old Jiho. Maybe he wasn't completely lost after all. They gathered their team and prepared to leave. The mission was simple in concept. Infiltrate the Imperial flagship, access Minsu's private files, get the evidence, escape alive. Each step was nearly impossible on its own. Together they added up to probable suicide. But as Hana looked around at the faces of her team, both human and Velthari, all willing to risk everything for the truth, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hana couldn't focus on the peace negotiations. While other delegates argued about territory and reparations, her mind kept wandering back to Jiho. She watched him during the sessions, studying every detail. He never looked at her. He stood like a statue, only speaking when asked direct questions, his answers brief and precise. Whatever warmth had once existed in him seemed completely gone. On the third day, she made her decision. She would find out what happened to him no matter what it took. That evening, Hana sat in her quarters with her personal computer. As a princess of the Velthari Empire, she had high security clearance. She could access military files that most people never saw. She started searching for anything related to humans, to First Contact, to the beginning of the war. The files told a story she didn't know. 8 years ago, the Velthari Empire had encountered human ships for the first time. The initial meetings had been friendly. Cultural exchanges were planned. Trade agreements were discussed. Both sides seemed excited about the new relationship. Then, just a year later, everything fell apart. Communications became hostile. Small conflicts began. Within 2 years, they were at war. But why, the files didn't explain. Large sections were marked classified, blocked even from her royal access. Someone didn't want people to know the full story. Hana sat back, frustrated. She needed help. Someone with technical skills who could access the deeper files. Someone she could trust completely. There was only one person who fit that description. She pressed a button on her communicator. "Dayan, can you come to my quarters? I need your help with something important." 15 minutes later, her personal guard arrived. Dayan was shorter than most Velthari, but twice as tough. They had grown up together in the palace. Dayun had protected her since they were children, and more importantly, Dayun was the only person who always told her the truth, even when it was difficult. "What's wrong?" Dayun asked, seeing Hana's expression. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't, not well anyway." Hana gestured to the computer screen. "I need to access classified files. Files that are blocked from me."
Can you do that?
Dayun's eyes narrowed. "That's treason, Hana, if we're caught." "I know, but I have to understand what really started this war. There's something wrong with the official story. Something hidden." "What makes you think that?" Hana hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about recognizing Jiho. It felt too personal, too complicated. But she needed Dayun's help, which meant she needed to be honest. "The human commander?" "Jiho Park, I knew him. Years ago before the war. We were friends." Dayun stared at her in shock. "You knew the Reaper of Veldara? The man who has killed thousands of our soldiers?" "He wasn't like that then. He was kind and gentle. A scientist, not a warrior. Something changed him, Dayun, something terrible. And I think it's connected to why this war started." Dayun was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, she nodded. "All right, I'll help you. But if we're caught, we'll both face serious punishment." "I understand. Thank you." It took Dayun 3 hours to break through the security systems. Hana watched nervously as lines of code scrolled across the screen. Finally, Dayun leaned back with a satisfied smile. "Got it, the deep archive is open." What are we looking for? Anything about the early days of human contact, especially anything that's been hidden or redacted. They searched through files together, reading quickly. Most of it was routine diplomatic correspondence, trade proposals, cultural exchange programs. Then Daeun found something that made her stop. Hana, look at this. The file was titled Kepler-7 Incident. Most of the text was blacked out, but some parts were readable. It was a military report from 7 years ago. The Kepler-7 research station had been destroyed. 847 people had died. 234 of them were human. Hana felt cold. When did I leave Kepler-7? You said it was 10 years ago, right? Yes, so this happened 3 years after I left. She scrolled through the file, trying to find more information. What does it say about the cause? Reactor malfunction. A terrible accident. Daeun frowned at the screen. But if it was just an accident, why is so much of this file classified? They kept searching and found more files. Some were Velthari military reports. Others were intercepted human communications. As Hana read them, a horrifying picture began to form. The humans believed the Velthari had destroyed Kepler-7 deliberately. They thought it was a weapons test on a civilian target. The intercepted messages showed human officials calling it murder, demanding justice, preparing for war. But the Velthari files insisted it was an accident. A reactor failure. Nothing more. Someone is lying, Hana whispered. Either our government or theirs. Maybe both. She searched for survivor lists from Kepler-7. The file was corrupted, but she could read some names. Her hands were shaking as she scrolled through them. Most were marked deceased. Then she found it. Park Ji-ho, status survivor. Injuries critical. Transferred to Earth Medical Facility. He was there, Hana said, her voice breaking. Ji-ho was on Kepler-7 when it was destroyed. He survived, but barely. Daeun put a hand on her shoulder. That would explain a lot. If he thinks we killed his friends, he would hate us. He would want revenge. Hana closed her eyes, feeling sick. That's why he became a soldier. That's why he fights so hard against us. They kept digging through the files. Hana learned that after recovering from his injuries, Ji-ho had joined the human military immediately. He had refused all assignments except those fighting the Velthari. His performance evaluations described him as brilliant but cold, driven by something deeper than duty. Within 5 years, he had become the youngest commander in human history. Every battle he fought, he won. His strategies were perfect. His tactics were flawless. He seemed to know exactly how Velthari commanders would think and react. Of course he did. He had spent years studying with them, learning from them, befriending them. Now he used that knowledge to destroy them. Hana found video footage from some of his battles. She forced herself to watch. Ji-ho's face on the command screen was calm and focused as he ordered attacks that killed hundreds of her people. No hesitation, no mercy. The gentle scientist she had known was completely gone. I need to talk to him, Hana said suddenly. I need to tell him that I didn't know. That most of our people didn't know what happened at Kepler-7. Will he listen? I don't know, but I have to try. The next day, Hana waited for Ji-ho outside the council chambers. When he emerged, surrounded by human officers, she stepped in front of him. Commander Park, I need to speak with you. In private. His expression didn't change. I have nothing to discuss with you, Princess. I know about Kepler-7, she said quickly before he could walk away. That got a reaction. His jaw tightened. Something flickered in his eyes. Anger. Pain. Both. You know nothing, he said quietly. Dangerously. I know you were there. I know what happened. I know you think we destroyed it deliberately. I don't think. I know. His voice was cold as ice. I was there, Princess. I saw the weapon signatures. I watched my friends burn. I held people as they died, and they asked me why. Why did the Velthari do this? I had no answer for them. Ji-ho, please, don't call me that. His composure cracked just a little. You don't have the right. Not anymore. Your people murdered 800 innocent civilians. Scientists, teachers, children, they killed them to test a weapon, and then they lied about it. I didn't know. Most of our people don't know. The files are classified, hidden. Someone in our government is lying, but it's not everyone. It's not me. For a moment, she thought he might listen. His expression softened just slightly. Then alarms started blaring throughout the station. Security breach. All delegates to safe rooms immediately. This is not a drill. Explosions rocked the station. People started screaming and running. Jiho immediately shifted into command mode, shouting orders to his officers. But even in the chaos, Hana saw him glance back at her once. Then the ceiling above them exploded, and everything went dark. When Hana woke up, she was lying on the floor. Her head hurt badly. Smoke filled the air. She could hear weapons fire nearby and people shouting in several languages. Dayun was pulling her to her feet. We have to move. The station is under attack. Who? Hana coughed, trying to clear her lungs. Who's attacking? I don't know. Come on. They ran through the damaged corridors. Bodies lay on the ground, both human and alien. Hana tried not to look at them. They found other survivors huddled in a side room, and Dayun secured the door. But Hana couldn't stop thinking about Jiho's face in that moment before the explosion. The anger, the pain, the tiny flicker of something else. Maybe doubt, maybe hope. She had discovered the truth about Kepler-7. But the truth was more complicated than she had imagined. And now someone was attacking the peace conference, trying to make sure the war continued. Nothing was what it seemed. The grand hall of the Galactic Council Station stretched out like a crystal cathedral in space. Princess Hana walked slowly through the massive doors, her royal robes flowing behind her. The fabric shimmered with colors that didn't exist on Earth, marking her as royalty of the Velthari Empire. She tried to keep her face calm and dignified, but inside her hearts were racing. Both of them. That was how her species worked, with two hearts that beat in rhythm when they were calm, and out of sync when they were afraid. Today they beat like war drums. The war had been going on for 3 years now. 3 years of death and destruction. 3 years of watching her people lose battle after battle against the humans. The mighty Velthari Empire, who had ruled this sector of space for thousands of years, was being defeated by a species that had only reached the stars a few decades ago. It was supposed to be impossible. The Velthari were stronger, faster, and had technology that humans couldn't match. But none of that seemed to matter. The humans kept winning, and now Hana was here to beg for peace. The thought made her sick, but she had no choice. Her father, the Emperor, had sent her because he was too proud to come himself. Thousands were dying every day. The Velthari military was collapsing. Something had to be done. She entered the main council chamber where delegates from 40 different species waited. Some stood on the floor, others floated in special gravity fields, and a few existed only as clouds of particles held together by magnetic containers. The diversity of life in the galaxy never stopped amazing her, even now. But then she saw him and everything else disappeared. He stood near the human delegation, tall and straight in a dark military uniform. His chest was covered with medals that caught the light. His black hair was cut short in the military style, and his face looked harder than she remembered. Older, more tired. But it was definitely him. Jiho. Hana felt like she couldn't breathe. The room seemed to spin around her. It had been 10 years since she last saw him, back on Kepler-7 research station. 10 years since they had studied together, laughed together, dreamed together about a peaceful galaxy where all species could work as friends. She had thought about him often over the years, wondering what he was doing, if he ever thought about her. She never imagined she would see him like this, as her enemy, as the commander of the forces destroying her people. The meeting began, but Hana couldn't focus on the speeches. She kept looking at Jiho across the chamber. He stood perfectly still, his hands behind his back, his face showing nothing. Did he recognize her? Did he even remember? The Jiho she knew had smiled easily and often. He had been gentle and curious about everything. This man looked like he had forgotten how to smile. When the session ended for a break, Hana moved quickly through the crowd. She had to talk to him. She had to understand. Her guards followed her, confused by her sudden rush, but she ignored them. Jiho? She called out when she got close enough. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. He turned to look at her. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, surprise, maybe even pain. But then it was gone, replaced by a cold, professional mask. Commander Park of the Terran Federation, he said formally, his voice flat. How may I help you, Your Highness? The words hit her like a physical blow. Your Highness. As if they were strangers. As if those years on Kepler-7 had never happened. Don't, she whispered, stepping closer. Please don't pretend you don't know me. It's me, Hana. We were friends. We were... I'm afraid you're mistaken, Princess. Jiho interrupted, his face still cold and empty. We have never met before this day. If you'll excuse me, I have duties to attend to." He turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in shock. Around them, other delegates were staring. Some looked curious, others uncomfortable. Hana felt her face burning with embarrassment and confusion. That night, back in her private quarters on the station, Hana couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Jiho's cold expression, hearing his formal words. "We have never met." But they had. She had the proof. She pulled up her old files from Kepler-7 on her personal computer. The images loaded slowly, data that was 10 years old. There they were, photographs of her and Jiho in the research biodomes, surrounded by plants from 100 different worlds. Jiho was laughing in one picture, his arm around her shoulders as they held up a successful experiment. In another, they were both covered in dirt after an accident in the lab, grinning like children. There were research papers they had written together, notes they had shared, long conversations saved in text form, discussing everything from quantum physics to their favorite foods. Hana read through them with tears in her eyes. They had been so happy, so full of hope for the future. She found a message he had sent her the day before she left Kepler-7 to return home. Her father had ordered her back to prepare for her royal duties. She hadn't wanted to go. The message was short but meant everything to her. "No matter what happens, Hana, remember that friendship transcends species. Distance cannot break what we have built. Stay curious, stay kind. I will miss you every day. Your friend always, Jiho." Hana read it 3 times, then a 4th. The man who wrote these words wasn't the same man she had seen today. Something had changed him. Something terrible must have happened. She started searching through news records, looking for any mention of Jiho Park. There were hundreds of articles. Most were from the last 3 years during the war. Human commander wins impossible battle. The Reaper of Veldara strikes again. Velthari fleet destroyed by human tactical genius. The Reaper of Veldara. They called him that because he was so deadly in battle, because he showed no mercy to Velthari forces. Every fight he commanded, he won. Every strategy he planned succeeded. He had become a legend among humans and a nightmare for her people. But before the war, there was almost nothing. Just a few academic papers about xenobiology, then a gap of several years with no records at all. Then suddenly he appeared as a military officer, rising through the ranks impossibly fast. What happened during those missing years? What changed him from a peaceful scientist to a warrior who destroyed her people without mercy? Hana leaned back in her chair, exhausted but unable to rest. Outside her window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there, thousands of soldiers on both sides were dying in a war that nobody really understood. And somehow the key to ending it was connected to the man she once called her best friend. She had come to this station to negotiate peace. But now she realized she had a different mission. She needed to find out the truth. She needed to understand what happened to Jiho. Because the cold, hard warrior she met today wasn't the real him. Something had broken him, changed him into this. And maybe, just maybe, if she could discover what that was, she could find a way to end this war. Not through treaties or negotiations, but by healing whatever wound had turned her friend into her enemy. Tomorrow, she would start investigating. Tonight, she would remember the man Jiho used to be, and hope that person still existed somewhere beneath the uniform and medals. The station's artificial night cycle dimmed the lights in her room. Hana finally closed her eyes, but sleep was a long time coming. When it did, she dreamed of better days on Kepler-7, when the future seemed bright and full of possibility, and her best friend was a human named Jiho, who believed that friendship could change the galaxy.